There comes a moment in life when you awaken to an uncomfortable reality. It's when you realize you've grown beyond the people around you, that you've evolved beyond what they can understand or accept. Albert Camus knew well this particular loneliness, this feeling of carrying an existential weight that few are willing to share. It's the risk of evolving when no one is ready to accompany you, a journey that can be both liberating and profoundly solitary. Imagine for a moment that you're in a room full of people, but you feel completely alone. It's not just a matter of introversion or shyness, it's something much deeper. You've developed a perception of reality that others haven't yet reached, or perhaps never will. Your conversations become superficial because you can no longer content yourself with banalities, but at the same time, when you try to share your deeper reflections, you encounter empty or uncomfortable stares. Camus described this experience with cutting precision when he spoke about the absurd nature of the human condition. For him, there exists a fundamental disconnect between our need for meaning and the apparent meaninglessness of the universe. But there's another equally painful absurd that he explored indirectly in his works, the disconnect between our personal growth and the stagnation of those we love. When you begin to question truths you once accepted without thinking, when you start to see through the social masks everyone wears, when you develop a sharper awareness of life's finitude and the importance of living authentically, you face a complex existential dilemma. On one hand, this evolution is necessary for your integrity as a human being. On the other, it can create an abyss between you and the people who are part of your life. Your friends may not understand why you no longer enjoy the same things as before. Your family may feel threatened by your new perspectives. Your romantic partner may perceive that you've changed in ways they cannot follow. Camus faced this experience in his own life. Born into a simple family in Algeria, he grew up in an environment where education and philosophical reflection weren't valued. As he developed his intellectual capacity and artistic sensitivity, he found himself in a delicate position. He loved his mother, a simple and illiterate woman, but at the same time felt the impossibility of sharing with her the worlds he discovered through books and philosophy. This tension between love and incomprehension permeates much of his work, especially in novels like The Stranger, where Meursault finds himself isolated not by choice, but by a fundamental difference in how he perceives and reacts to the world. Personal evolution is rarely a linear or comfortable process. It requires us to question our most deeply rooted beliefs, to confront our internal contradictions, to accept uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world. It's a process that can lead us to abandon behaviors, relationships, and even identities that no longer serve our growth. But here's the cruel paradox. The more we evolve, the more aware we become of the resistance our evolution encounters in the world around us. People have a natural tendency to prefer predictability. They feel comfortable when they can categorize us, when they know what to expect from us. When we begin to change, especially in profound and genuine ways, this disturbs the balance of the relational systems in which we're embedded. Think about how many times you've heard phrases like, "You've changed," said in an accusatory tone, as if change were inherently bad. Or comments like, "You're not the same person I met," loaded with a melancholy that suggests the previous version of you was preferable. These reactions reveal something fundamental about human nature. We fear change, even when it represents growth and improvement. And this fear intensifies when the change happens to someone close to us, because it forces us to confront our own stagnation. Camus understood that authenticity has a price. In the myth of Sisyphus, he explores the idea that we must imagine Sisyphus happy, even condemned, to push a rock up a mountain for all eternity. This metaphor can be applied to the experience of evolving alone. There's a kind of absurd heroism in continuing to grow and develop, even when it means accepting the loneliness that comes with differentiation. It's not that we choose to be different out of whim or arrogance. It's that our existential integrity demands we be true to our development process, even when this process distances us from those we love. The loneliness of evolution isn't just emotional, it's also intellectual and spiritual. When you begin to see patterns that others don't see, when you develop a more nuanced understanding of human complexity, when you come to value experiences and insights that others consider irrelevant or disturbing, you find yourself in a unique and isolated position. Your references change, your priorities reorganize. Your way of processing experiences becomes more sophisticated. This doesn't make you better than others in a moral sense, but it creates a difference in perspective that can be difficult to bridge. There's also the weight of responsibility that comes with expanded consciousness. When you see more clearly the toxic dynamics in relationships, the self-destructive patterns in people's behavior, the illusions that sustain questionable social structures, you face difficult choices. Do you try to open others' eyes, risking being seen as arrogant or destabilizing? Or do you keep your perceptions to yourself, preserving superficial harmony but feeling dishonest and isolated? Camus suggested we should accept responsibility for our choices without expecting others to make the same choices or reach the same conclusions. The risk of evolving when no one is ready to accompany you also includes the possibility that you might be wrong. Genuine evolution requires humility, the ability to recognize that our growth is a continuous and imperfect process. Sometimes what we perceive as evolution may just be a sophisticated form of arrogance or escapism. It's important to maintain a critical stance toward our own development, constantly questioning our motivations and perceptions. Camus emphasized the importance of lucidity, the ability to see clearly both our virtues and our flaws, both our wisdom and our ignorance. But assuming our evolution is genuine and necessary, how do we deal with the isolation it can bring? First, it's crucial to accept that not all relationships are destined to last forever. Some people enter our lives to accompany us through certain stages of development, and when we grow beyond those stages, it's natural for some bonds to loosen or break. This doesn't make these relationships less valuable or meaningful for the time they lasted, but recognizes that impermanence is a fundamental characteristic of human experience. Second, it's important to cultivate the ability to find meaning and satisfaction in the very journey of growth, regardless of others' recognition or accompaniment. Camus spoke about creating personal values in an apparently meaningless universe. Similarly, we can create personal meaning in our evolution process, even when this process temporarily separates us from others. The loneliness of evolution can be transformed into productive solitude, a space for reflection and creation that allows us to develop a deeper relationship with ourselves. Third, it's essential to maintain compassion for those who aren't ready to accompany our journey. They're not inferior or limited by choice. They're simply at different stages of development or have different existential needs. Judging or despising those who don't evolve at the same pace as us is a form of arrogance that contradicts the very spirit of genuine growth. Camus showed particular tenderness for simple and direct people, recognizing there was a fundamental human wisdom that transcended intellectual sophistication. There's also the possibility that our evolution serves as a catalyst for others' growth, even if this doesn't happen immediately. Sometimes our transformation plants seeds that germinate much later, in moments we don't even witness. By living authentically and demonstrating through our actions that it's possible to question, grow, and change, we offer an example that can inspire others to embark on their own development journeys. But it's important to do this without expectations, without the need to see immediate results or recognition for our role in others' growth. Here, at this point in the video, I'd like to hear about your experience. Have you ever gone through this feeling of evolving beyond the people around you? How was it to deal with the loneliness that comes with personal growth? Share your reflections on this theme in the comments, because I believe your experiences can greatly enrich our collective discussion about this so human and universal aspect of existence. Solitary evolution also teaches us about the importance of emotional and intellectual self-sufficiency. When we can no longer depend on constant validation from others for our choices and perceptions, we're forced to develop a more reliable internal compass. This can be frightening initially because it means taking total responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and actions. But it's also profoundly liberating because it allows us to make decisions based on our own integrity rather than social approval. Camus wrote about the need to create personal values in a world without absolute moral guarantees. This creation of values becomes even more crucial when we're navigating existential territories that others around us don't recognize or understand. We need to develop internal criteria to evaluate our progress, to distinguish between genuine growth and mere superficial change, to maintain our direction even when we're walking alone. There are moments in the journey of solitary evolution when the temptation to backtrack becomes almost irresistible. It's easier to return to old ways of thinking and acting, to reintegrate into groups we've distanced ourselves from, to accept limitations we once questioned. This temptation is understandable and human. The loneliness of differentiation can be painful, especially when it affects relationships we value. But Camus would remind us that authenticity requires courage, and courage includes the ability to bear temporary discomfort in the name of deeper integrity. It's also important to recognize that evolution isn't a process that happens only individually. Even when we're growing beyond our immediate circle, we can seek communities of people who are on similar development journeys. This can include philosophical study groups, contemplative practice communities, circles of people interested in genuine personal growth. Modern technology offers us opportunities to connect with people who share our existential concerns, even if they're geographically distant. The loneliness of evolution doesn't have to be absolute. It can be mitigated by the intentional search for compatible companionship. Another crucial aspect is understanding that our evolution can serve as a gift to the world, even when it temporarily separates us from specific people. When we develop greater awareness, compassion, authenticity, and wisdom, we contribute to the collective good in ways that may not be immediately visible. Our more conscious presence subtly affects all our interactions. Our increased ability to see and respond to reality benefits everyone who comes into contact with us. Our growth journey adds something valuable to the fabric of collective human experience. Camus believed we should live as if our actions mattered, even in an apparently indifferent universe. Similarly, we can evolve as if our growth mattered, even when it seems no one is paying attention or benefiting directly from it. There's an inherent dignity in the process of human development that doesn't depend on external recognition for its validity. The loneliness of evolution also offers us unique opportunities for spiritual and creative development. When we're less concerned with conforming to others' expectations, we have more mental and emotional space to explore unexplored internal territories. We can develop deeper relationships with art, nature, philosophy, spirituality. We can cultivate forms of creativity that are genuinely ours, not influenced by the limitations or prejudices of our immediate social environment. There's also something profoundly honest in accepting the loneliness that comes with growth, recognizing that we won't always be understood, that our journey may take us to places where others cannot or will not follow us, is a form of existential maturity. It's accepting that genuine individuality has real costs, but these costs are preferable to the dishonesty of pretending to be someone we're no longer. The process of evolving beyond others also teaches us about the impermanence of all human conditions. Just as our current loneliness is temporary, the connections we've lost may be renewed in different forms in the future, and new connections may arise with people who are at similar frequencies of development. Life is dynamic, and our current relational situation isn't necessarily permanent. Finally, it's important to remember that genuine evolution includes developing the capacity to love unconditionally. This means we can maintain love and compassion for people who cannot accompany us on our journey, without necessarily expecting them to change or grow in the same way we do. We can honor our own need for growth, while simultaneously honoring others' choice to remain where they are. This ability to love without expectations is perhaps one of the deepest marks of spiritual maturity. If this video resonated with you, if it touched on something you've been living or observing in your own growth journey, consider subscribing to the channel. Here we regularly explore these complex territories of human experience, always with the honesty and depth these themes deserve. Your presence in this community makes a difference. The risk of evolving when no one is ready to accompany you is real and can be profoundly challenging. But it's also a gateway to a more authentic way of existing in the world. Camus taught us that we can create meaning and dignity even in the most absurd and solitary circumstances. Solitary evolution isn't a punishment or a mistake. It's simply one of the possible human experiences, as valid as any other. When we accept this reality with courage and grace, we transform our loneliness into a kind of freedom. Freedom to be genuinely ourselves, to grow according to our deepest nature, to contribute to the world in ways that are uniquely ours. And in this freedom, even in loneliness, there's a peculiar form of joy. Sisyphus's joy, who finds meaning in the very act of pushing the rock, regardless of others' recognition or companionship. It's a joy born from integrity, from the courage to be true to oneself in a world that doesn't always understand or value this fidelity. And perhaps, in the end, this is the most profound form of existential success. Living according to our highest truth, even when it means walking alone for a while.